We continue exploring the water crisis in the country, and we now look at the impact that drought has on agriculture and food production. And talking to me via Skype is Chief Economist from the Agricultural Business Chamber of South Africa, Mr. Wandile Slobo. Thank you so much, Mr. Slobo, for your time. And let's just kickstart a conversation with the impact. Now, what impact or level of impact does drought have on both agriculture and food production?
Thanks, Timelo, for having me on. I think on agriculture so far, the impact has really been on seeing how the livestock sector is doing, particularly in the small farms. Because what has happened is over the past few months, while there is water crisis in certain parts of South Africa, but it's not really widespread. We are not at the level, say, that we were in 2015 and 2016. It's really certain pockets of the district. Yeah. And even if, for example, you were to look, say, dam levels across South Africa, they still on average above 50% as of the 21st of October data. So it's certain pockets. But on aggregate, I would say that the sector is still relatively in better position.
Yeah, but it seems that agriculture bears much of the impact. I mean, this in most developing countries, it is the most affected sector, especially as far as drought is concerned, because I understand it's absorbing up to 80% of all direct impacts.
Yeah, I mean, what is going to happen, or what is important, is to say what will be happening within the next couple of weeks. Because if you think back on the 2018-19 production season, which is what we harvested around about June this year, yes, South Africa's agricultural production was down. Key crops, particularly on the grains, were down by double-digit compared to the previous year, but we were still at comfortable levels, which is why we were able, for example, up until now, we still have enough food supply. We still net exporters of agricultural product. But obviously, when one thinks about the Northern Cape, you think about certain parts of the Eastern Cape. That is where the impact, and to a certain extent, Northwest, that is where the impact has really been severe. But now I think what's important for us is to say what will happen over the next couple of weeks, because right now we are at the planting period. And in the eastern side of South Africa, by this time of the year in a normal season, you would have already seen planting really on full swing. And at this point, the very few areas have begun planting in there, and some areas like the Eastern Cape are really extremely dry. Now the question is to say, will we be getting enough rainfall over the next couple of weeks, and what will that mean for production? And if we don't get enough rainfall, then that's where we will have a serious problem. I would say we are on a sit-and-wait situation, but there are certain pockets that are in a tough situation.
And with that said, I want us to just get a bit technical just here for a moment. Let's elaborate on the term agricultural drought, as in how the soil, the crop growth, as well as production value chain is affected.
Look, if you think about South Africa's agricultural production, as of now, as I've noted that we have sufficient supplies, we are coming out of the winter season. Optimal planting periods for South Africa, think about maize, for example, that's between the 15th of November, 15th of October to 15th of November in the eastern side of South Africa. That's Mpumalanga, KZN, Eastern Free State, and to a certain extent, Eastern Cape, as well as Limpopo. Western side of South Africa, Northwest and the Western Free State, that's 15th of November going to 15th of December. So you want to get rainfall prior those periods. Eastern side, we haven't received enough rainfall. Now we have delays in plantings. And now the key question is to say, will we get rainfall within the next 2 weeks? And as best as we can tell from some of the estimates and information that is coming up from the South African Weather Service, and even if you look at WX Maps, which is the George Mason-based weather forecast, they say that between November 2019 and January 2020, the central and eastern parts of South Africa could receive above normal rainfall. Then now, if that materializes, it could change the whole ball game. Farmers themselves, last week, for example, on Thursday, they came up saying within the 2019-20 production season, they could raise the area planting for summer crops by 7% year on year to about 3.9 million hectares. But for them to do that, they need to receive that rainfall. Yeah. Obviously, while the local weather agency said that they will get that rainfall, there is some level of uncertainty. But I think that it might be too early to call it a crisis or not. Yeah. And as far as the consumers, the food price inflation are still at comfortable levels. We still have supplies for now.
It's interesting you say that, because Minister Sulu said yesterday herself that, during her press briefing, that there is no need to panic about the current water challenges, but rather implored South Africans to just use water sparingly. But I want to know from you, do you think that government has proper drought management and planning to alleviate some of the concerns that perhaps the agri-sector sector may have right now, even farmers and food producers may want to be reassured on?
No, I would say we can do more. The government can do more in terms of assisting farmers. There are certain pockets of district, for example, within the north. Maybe might need assistance in terms of the feed, particularly in the livestock sector. I think there might be assistance. There are disaster areas within the Eastern Cape, which I think they are really strained. And I had been driving past 2 weeks across that province, seeing the agricultural conditions. So I think there might be a need there for increased assistance. But I think when one looks aggregately on South Africa's agricultural sector to say should we panic or not, I would say sit back for now and watch what happens within November. If we don't get good rainfall within November, then we could start thinking about what will happen. If you're a consumer, it's really a monitoring stage at this time, but no need to be panicking about rising food prices or not. I mean, food price inflation in South Africa for the past 9 months has averaged about less than 3%, I think about 2.9% or so. And for the year, we still think food price inflation will be less than 3.9%. So we are comfortable.
Thank you so much for your time and input. That was Chief Economist from the Agricultural Business Chamber of South Africa, Wandile Slob.